Well, welcome back, everybody, to Living Happy Every Day with Dr. LaSharnda. And I'm so glad that you tuned in today as we continue this series of my 5 tips, successful tips for you to overcome your past insecurities. And as I pointed out last week, I laid out those 5 tips, and I said to you that over the next several weeks, what we would be doing is we would be talking about each of those in depth so that I can give you some techniques or some strategies that you can use that can help you overcome those things that keep you from becoming all that you can be. So we're going to start off with tip number 1 that we talked about last week. Tip number 1 was that of positive reflection. And I start out with the word reflection for several reasons. And the reason you may ask, why do you use positive? Because positive reflection, as I pointed out last time, is a time for you to set aside early in the morning. If you choose to be early in the morning, I think that's the best means of starting this positive reflection out. Start out early in the morning, some quiet time to yourself, some time to think, some time to reflect. And the reason I use the word positive in front of that is because typically when you talk to people and they go into a time of reflection, what you tend to see is where people focus on the negatives. We look back and we evaluate. And sometimes I use the word criticize. We criticize ourselves. We look at what happened yesterday or last week or last month, or even now, this is January, and we look back over the year and we didn't accomplish the things that we had set out to do. So we criticize ourselves rather than looking at what it is that we did accomplish during the year. So positive reflection is what I focus on, the word positive, because I want you to understand that this isn't a time for you in the morning to get up and to focus on all of the negatives and to focus on what's so wrong with you or what didn't go right. I want you to focus on what did go right with you. And that's why I talk about a thankfulness journal. Because when I know a lot of people journal, but the reason I think using a journal I call a gratitude journal or a thankfulness journal is because when you're writing down things that happened yesterday or things that happened this morning, you waking up this morning, you being able to have a good night's sleep, you having your own bed. A lot of people don't have a bed to sleep in, or you being able to get up this morning and be able to go to a job, or you having a family, or a multitude of things. When you start to focus on the positives in your life, it's really hard to focus on the negatives. I insist that positive and negatives can't coexist. So it's so important for that morning time of reflection. That time, even if you do it in the evening, that time of reflection is a time for you to focus on the positives. So many times we don't hear and we don't see that a lot of what goes on with us, a lot of how we think, a lot of the things that we reflect upon, those things they start back, with our attitudes. That time of positive reflection is a time for us to check our attitudes, because believe it or not, attitudes become behaviors, they become actions, and ultimately that is our character, and that's how people know us. So do you want a life where you're destined to be great? You want to be successful? And I don't mean just successful money-wise, and I don't mean successful as far as wealth is concerned. A lot of times we hear the word success, that's what we think about. We think of making a lot of money, and although there's nothing wrong with that, true success starts with us becoming successful, controlling ourselves, and knowing how to overcome insecurities and not getting hung up on stuff. And sometimes we are detrimental to ourselves. We're not successful because of our attitudes, because of how people perceive us, because of our behaviors. It's so important to recognize those things. Sometimes we think that people are against us. We sit and we think that folks always criticize us, or they're not in our corner, and if we're left to our own devices, what we do is we start to contemplate, and this is that time of reflection. If we're not careful, and that's why it's stress positive, if we're not careful in that time of reflection, we will start to focus on people. And a lot of times we are not focusing on the people that are positive, we're focusing on those people that we perceive as people that criticize us, people that talk about us, people that's not in our corner. And if you're not careful, what starts to happen, we start to obsess about those people. We start to become distracted. I talk a lot about the art of distraction. We become distracted. And those goals, those dreams that we have, and those goals that we've crafted and we've made action plans to achieve, they become distant because we're so distracted by the naysayers. We're so distracted by the little things that are biting at our ankles. A time of positive reflection is for you to sit down and think about, what's my next step? What do I do next? How do I achieve this next goal? Here's my long-term goals. And so what are some of those short-term incremental things that I need to do to be able to reach that long-term goal? A lot of times we're so quick to take off. We wake up early in the morning. I talk about how we wake up to the loudness of the television. We wake up to the loudness of the radio, or we wake up to a lot of chatter and a lot of white noise, I call it. And so we don't have the time to sit down and think about, what do I do next? A time of reflection is also a time for you to get grounded. It's a time for you to connect with that inner voice of yours before you walk out the door. You know, believe you me, and I know I don't have to remind you all of this, but typically you already know that when you walk out the door in the morning, and you know, you don't even have to walk out of your house, you can have stress right there in your own home. But typically, as the day goes on and we walk out of our doors and get in our cars, the stress can start the minute you get on the freeway. If you're not careful, if you're not grounded, if you haven't kind of connected already that morning, you're yelling at the person in the car next to you, or you're doing some other type of behavior that you'll regret later on. You're not being the best that you can be. You'll get distracted by those negative things, that white noise, that chatter, and all of the other stuff that you don't want to impact you in such a negative way. So my thing is that the time of reflection is a time for you to get grounded. Set the foundation, because when you walk out the door, you want to be in control. Self-reflection gives you an opportunity to get in control. You want to be in control of your emotions, your behaviors. You want to be in control of your conversations. So now check this out. You're now at work, and you're now having to talk with people. You're having to deal with customers. You're having to deal with coworkers, your boss. A lot of things, or a lot of people, that can create stress in your life. And so in order for you to be able to positively interact with those folks and be all that you can be and overcome those types of stressors and be a productive person, you want to be able to know what it is that you need to do and be able to be in control of your actions each day, each minute. And that's not impossible. Some would have you believe that it's impossible to be in control of your actions. It's impossible to keep check of your attitude. It's impossible for you not to get angry. But I believe that if you use a methodical approach, and that is, if you connect with your inner self, if you sit down and you reflect in the morning, if you take time to commune with the universe or to commune with God, if you take that time to yourself so that you can get connected, you'll be better at what it is that you're trying to overcome when you walk out of the house in the morning. Now here you are, you're at work, you're in the community, you're dealing with other people, and the stressors are starting to come, and you're a multifaceted person, you're a multitasking person, a lot of things are going on, and you're trying to juggle so many things. And somebody says the wrong thing, or you do the wrong thing. you look back on that with regret. Now here we are tomorrow morning, and you look back on how you lost your temper the day before, or you said the wrong thing, or you did the wrong thing. And now you are, what, beating yourself up? You're being hard on yourself. You're not forgiving yourself. A time of reflection says, and I say positive reflection, it says, it's not time for you to beat yourself up, to criticize yourself, and to condemn everything that you've done. Absolutely acknowledge that your behaviors weren't intact, and absolutely acknowledge that you need to be a better person, and the next time you will be. Because every day as you go through these steps, these 5 tips that I've outlined for you, if you go through positive reflection and positive reinforcement and positive nutrition and positive energy and positive encouragement, as you go through those steps each day, not once a month, not once a week, but as you go through those each day, you'll start to see just how bigger and better and brighter you become, and how you're able to not allow circumstances to control you. And that takes me to another point as I chat with you today, and that is, so many times, because we haven't gotten in touch with our inner self, because we haven't sat down and kind of outlined the things that we need to do and think through those things that we need to do to better ourselves, we sometimes lose control. We lose control. We lose our temper. When people say something that we perceived as the wrong thing, our perceptions can be off kilter. And so we don't want that. We want to be people that are God-fearing people. We want to be people of character, people of integrity. We want people to look at us and believe that that's the person I want to be. I don't want to be a person that's negative and down and out and a victim. And I don't want to be a person that's bringing everybody around me down. I want to be a person that lifts people up. I want to be an encourager. And if you're a leader in any type of business, you don't have to be just in a business that is, all about just soft skills or all about compassion. I'm talking about, anywhere. As a leader, you want to be a person that's going to motivate people. You want to be a mentor. You want to nurture people to be all that they can be. And let me ask you this. Will people look at you and say, yeah, I want to be like that person? Will people look at you and say, yeah, I want to behave like that person? Will people look at you and say, man, I wish that I could keep my emotions in check like that person's, and not become angry so quick, and not become quick-tempered so easily, and not lash out at people just because I feel like it. I remember a person a couple of years ago, and I was thinking of 2 people, and I won't call their names, and if they're watching the show, they'll know who I'm talking about. But one person was just such a beautiful person. I worked for her. And one thing that she said, one thing about her that I said to her, rather, was that, you can be honest with people, but you don't have to leave people bloody. And what that means is this, is that she was always honest with people, but she was also a compassionate person, and she cared about people. She cared about their feelings. And then I knew another person that was just the polar opposite of her. That person didn't mind leaving you bloody, and that means leaving you bleeding in the middle of the floor. That means that they said whatever it is that was on their minds. And then I knew of another person, I'm sure I've known of several, and you have too, as you think through what I'm talking about. People that when you walked away from them, you felt good about yourself. And then there were others that you just felt like going and jumping off a cliff after you walked away from them, because you felt like there was nothing right that you could have done. Which are you? Are you the type of person that when the people walk away from you, they don't feel drained, tired, and feel like the world is on their shoulders? Or do they feel uplifted, encouraged, and do they feel positive and that they can go out and conquer the world? Well, I think for any of us, positive reflection will allow us the time to think about how it is that we interact with other people too, how we impact other people, how we enhance their lives or we take away from it. When I first started this positive reflection, You know, one of the things that it did for me is this, because I'm really by nature a task-oriented person. And a task-oriented person doesn't mean, or maybe it does, but it doesn't mean that you are not a people person. But I guess in the era that I grew up in, you were either a task-oriented person or a people person. And so I was really all about tasks. Whatever it is that I needed to get done, that's what was going to be done. I didn't care about the feelings of other people. I just knew this was a task, let's go for it. As I grew older and I started out in management and I grew up in management and then became an executive within government and have been for 26 years. And then I started to